Welcome to the Women in Business radio show with Sian Murphy, connecting women in business around the globe.
Hello and welcome into the Women in Business radio show studio. I'm Sian Murphy. My co-host is Adelle. Say hello, Adelle.
Hi, morning.
Adelle Martin of Executive Midlife Coaching. I don't know what I do. One day I'll work. I don't have a title.
No,
I'm just Sian. That's not like I'm not taking on pretensions like Madonna and opera because I can't work out on Prince. It's because I don't know what I do. Okay, so we are here for the Fit for Business show. And we welcome into the studio today Maria Chumas-Baker from Darkness to Light Hypnotherapy. And we are going to be talking about hypnotherapy. How can it support you? How can it support you in your business? How can it support you in your personal life? Basically, how can it help you? And perhaps dispel some of the myths that
misunderstandings.
Misperception.
Misunderstandings.
Am I making words up again?
No, misperception.
Misperception.
It's all missed.
Yeah, no, it is. Yeah, it is.
It's all misunderstood.
That's what we're going to be talking about. First off, I think, should we share how people can connect with us? I mean, if they're listening to us, it may seem like a bit of an odd thing, but if you're listening to us right now, literally right now, at 11 o'clock on Thursday morning, you are listening to us live. And of course, we turn this later on, we turn it into a podcast. And I'm ashamed to say we don't edit out any of this umming and ahhing and bits and pieces and
keeping
stuff.
It real.
Yes, keeping it real. That's really naff.
We are though. We don't edit. What is we don't.
No, who could edit this? I mean, let's be honest.
No.
It'd be very difficult, wouldn't it, to weed it through. So, how can people listen to us? Do you want to do this bit, Adelle?
Okay, then you can listen to us on Spotify, Audible, Apple Podcasts, and Spreaker, and also on Alexa if you enable the skill.
And how do they? I think we ought to share. If you just go and search for the Women in Business radio show, you will find us
on there.
You will find us. And you can also connect with us on Twitter at Wib Radio Live. You can connect with us on Instagram at Women in Business Radio, and Facebook and LinkedIn. We are the Women in Business radio show.
We are.
And you can become a supporting member. So if you would like to support the show, we want to keep it affordable for anybody, all women in business, to be able to come onto the show. We don't want to start charging huge amounts of money, anything like that. We want to make it accessible. We want to make it fun. If you'd like to become a supporting member, that's only £7 a month, and you get a premium newsletter as well. And you can find out more about that by visiting the Women in Business radio show. I've got nothing else now. What we got?
Our usual questions fit for business.
So we're now going to get Maria to join in the conversation with us. So hopefully she's listened to the show beforehand, so she knows that we do this. Yeah. But if not, that's actually okay. And in fact, sometimes that's better, because I think we get real answers. We don't get... people haven't thought about it. So should we start with what have we learnt this week?
Yeah.
Do you want to go first?
Okay, absolutely. So for me, what I've learnt this week is slow down to go faster. So I've been using this week just to look at, we were talking about some replanning before we came on air, and starting to think about what Q4 looks like and Q1 into next year. And I was already going at speed for this week. So I just took some time, I slowed down, took some time out, and then was able to replan so that actually I can go faster on X, Y and Z because I took some things out that I didn't need to do. So sometimes we think we need to go faster. So I just literally slowed down to go faster was what I've learnt this week.
Maria, what have you learnt this week?
Oh, gosh, on the spot straight away. Thanks, Sian. What have I learnt this week? Gosh, I have learnt that I've got to basically, like you're saying, Adelle, slow down, think about things, see what I really need to do and what I don't need to do, and put things in their place, actually, because us women in business, we are so on the go all the time. We're constantly on the go, and we don't actually have much me time either. So we need to really sit down and say, do I really need to do that? Can that wait till next week? So I've been looking through that, creating new folders in my Outlook with action and pending, and just trying to be more organised, really, to see what I actually do need to do and what I don't need to do, actually, at the moment, which is quite a lot. So that's what I've learned this week too. Yes.
I think I'm going to follow on from both of those, because I'm forever saying you need to stop and you need to plan and you need to do this and you need to do that. But then I can't actually do it. And this week I have. I have done it. And what I learned was that you actually have to create the space to do that. And you have to do it at a time that's going to work. So I had the urge to do this whilst I was running goodness knows how many events. And one of them was the biggest event for me of the year. And so sitting down and thinking, actually, I need to spend, a week planning and organising myself. It's just not the right time to do it. So I had to put it in the diary and create that time, but at a time when it worked. It's no good trying to do this when you can't do it. And then you get to the end of it and you think, oh, that's something else. I haven't managed to do that. I haven't failed to do that. You have to take a few minutes. Just take a few minutes and look at your diary and go, when can I do this?
I think we're very, very hard on ourselves, actually. We're constantly thinking, I've got to do this, I've got to do this. And at the end of the day, we've got to give ourselves some slack and sit down. Take 5 minutes or 10 minutes of really good deep breathing and just think, what is this all about? What do I really need to do? Otherwise, we will just get into complete overwhelm. And I think that was the thing. I made a decision that what I actually needed to do was to run the damned event. That I knew what I needed to do for the event, and that now, and I just had to do that. And that sitting down and taking 2 days or 3 days to actually plan the next year, even though as much as I felt I needed to do it, it was not the right time. I needed to run that event. And I think that's where I've slipped up before, is I know I need to sit down and plan, and then I make a decision to do it at a time when it just can't happen. Because there's so much else going on, it's just impossible. So I learned, yes, I need to create that space, but I need to create it at a time when it works. And what is the priority now? And the priority could be that you need to do the VAT return. The priority could be that you need to do something else. Could be that you need to go to the hospital. Whatever it is, it's no good trying to fit in a session of sitting down and relaxing and planning when the time isn't right. What are we on to now? Book recommendations. Have you got one?
I have binged on a podcast this week.
It's not him again, is it?
No, it's absolutely not. No, it's the podcast called Zoe, Science and Nutrition, and I've been following them for a little bit on Instagram, and then I've clicked over, and there's because of what I do, there's some emerging research on the link of food and mindset. So some emerging papers that have come out, particularly around women. We know historically most research is based on young men, because that's generally the ones that volunteer. But there's some new emerging research that's come out on the link of food, and they've been talking about like milk alternatives. It's just kicking the tires on things that perhaps we take for granted, like is vegan really that healthy, processed food. So it's just a new and more refreshing way of looking at it. But it's based on, so I've been following that for this week. So I've done some binging on that. So rather than a book, I've probably had about 5 or 6 hours of binging on the podcast while I've been doing quite a lot of cardio and walking.
In fact, we need to change that, because it's not really a book recommendation. It's what are you learning? What are you reading this week? Isn't it? I'm going to look. I actually have notes. This is the problem.
Yeah.
So I'm going to change that.
It's equivalent to like so many chapters, but obviously it's delivered as a podcast.
I like that. What's it called again?
Zoe, Science and Nutrition.
Zoe, Science and Nutrition.
And what I also like is each podcast is about 35 minutes long. So it's easy to listen.
Yeah, it's easily digestible. I did think about cutting this show down into more parts, but I'm not going to.
No.
Perhaps we'll do a little survey or something. I think. Maria, what are you reading at the moment?
Well, I must admit, Sian, I've got about 7 books on the go. They're all in a pile.
Like me. I'm like that.
on my table in my therapy room, and at the moment I'm not getting to really read any of them. I've started them, but it's just finding the time to sit down and read them. But one book in particular, I don't know whether you've heard it, by Dr. Julie Smith. I can't. What's the exact title?
Well, actually, you've popped it down on your bio as one of your recommended books. I've seen this actually on Audible, but I haven't got it. So it's Why Has Nobody Told Me This Before by Dr. Julie Smith.
Exactly, that's correct.
What's it about? Just rough.
It's basically about a how the mind works, more or less what I talk about in my sessions, and why we think the way we do, and when we have thoughts that are not really good for us, what to do about them, how to think differently. There's all sorts of things in it, actually. I've only just sort of more or less started it, but it's a book about psychology, really, the way we think, why we suffer from anxiety, what's going on in our brains when we're doing this, and how to rationalise it and how to stop doing it. It's fascinating, and I'm following her on Instagram, and she puts out wonderful reels and all sorts of videos on it, so that's good. Yeah,
I might hop over and have a look at that one.
yeah, it's a good book.
I'm still on Eckhart. I know.
You
I know.
keep talking to me about the SB.
I know. Yeah, but that was
Eckhart
different.
Tolle.
I don't fancy Eckhart Tolle.
He's wonderful. I listen to some of his videos as well.
Yeah,
He's got great.
I've been listening, and that's all I've been doing really. However, I have been reading a book about the history of tarot. So tarot cards, yeah, and they're fascinating. I'm not going to go into detail now, but just the history of tarot cards and all of that sort of thing. It's just something that sort of grabbed my attention. So sort of totally off on a tangent, actually. So it's got really sort of not a lot to do with anything else, but just a little bit of.
It's interesting to listen to the history, because we just accept tarot now, but where did it come from?
A little bit of interest, because I think it's something that people get confused about what they're for and how they're used, and fortune telling and all of this sort of thing. But they have this huge and wonderful history behind them, as a lot of stuff like the Bible has. There's a fantastic history behind it, even if you don't believe in it. Yeah. It's still interesting to read it. So that's what I've been doing. History of tarot and more Eckhart, obviously. So, I don't know, here we go. This is a difficult one for you and I, so I don't want you to worry, Maria, but it's all on you, because... because we have two little questions now. So one of them is, what's your biggest failure, and the other is, what's your superpower? Well, of course, if it's your biggest failure, we can only have one. Can't you? You can only have one failure. I haven't had a massive failure since last week, and I only have one superpower. So that's it, really. So what's your biggest failure? Actually, have you had a failure this month or this week that you can rank up?
But I really would say my biggest failure is that I jumped in too early in my business journey and invested quite a lot of money into a piece of software that I really didn't need. So for me, I should have allowed my business journey to go further, so I really crystallised what I was trying to do. But I got pulled in from a good conversation, I had some startup funds, and I handed it over. So that's probably my biggest failure. So what that enabled me to do, so when I've now gone to phase 2 of my business, people say to me, why have you taken 12 months to go from where you are to deliver my app, which the final version is going in this week, was because I was only 12 days in and handed over money. So now I've decided a 12-month journey with my provider has enabled me to do that. But I handed over some money early on that I really didn't need to.
Do you know, this is probably in the wrong show. This should probably be in the sort of business show. But I have worked with quite a number of people now who have had bespoke software built for them at huge expense, when there's actually an off-the-shelf solution that sometimes is actually better. Yeah. Because it does more, and so you're sharing in the sort of collective buy-in, aren't you, rather than having something built specifically for you. You're not tied into the person who built it for you, because you can move if you need to. And I can think of very, very few business cases where you need bespoke software built. And I've seen quite a few people who've spent thousands and thousands and thousands to have something that looks like a spreadsheet with a bit of a database on it, that for starters you can go and get from Mac, or Airtable will do it, Zoho will do it, and it's nothing. It's actually, you look at this thing and you think, that's actually really not that special. Yeah. So, and in fact it's not special at all. Yeah. So, yes, be very, very careful. And before you have something built, go and have a look and see whether it's already out there, because you may be surprised.
Yeah, definitely.
Maria, what's your biggest failure?
Is this in my personal life
Doesn't
or business
doesn't
life?
matter. Doesn't matter. Whichever. I think sometimes that the two things, once you go into business, the two things are very often blurred. You can't. Sometimes the biggest failure in our personal life leads to our business.
And normally it's getting in with the wrong person.
Yes, yeah.
Which I did when I was in my teens. And then in my business, actually, unfortunately, it was last year where, a bit like you, Adele, I went on this sort of free challenge with a hypnotherapist who's basically really, really, really good. She's only been going for about 3 years, but she's really built up a huge following. And I did a free challenge with her, the 5-day challenge, and then I went on the final sort of online call with her, and I decided to actually subscribe to her mastermind bit, which was just under £2,000, because I thought, yes, this is really going to help me. This will give me all this stuff to be able to do, etc., etc. The next day, I thought to myself, I can't swear on the show, can I?
No, not really.
Okay. Damn it. Why did I do that? What were you thinking? Because maybe a bit like you, Adele, I just thought, yeah, this is for me. And then I decided the next day, why did you do it? It's not actually
So
for
did
me.
you get your money back?
I only got half of it back.
Ooh.
So I was really out of pocket by about 900 quid.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure that's legal. I'm not sure. I'm saying I'm not sure that's legal.
But basically, I said to her, look, I've only used this one tiny part of your thingy at the moment, But she said because I'd signed the terms and conditions, da-di-da-di-da, she could only give me half. So
was that in the UK?
Yes. I felt really, really
I
bad
think
about it.
I think I'm not sure. I mean, for anybody listening in, make sure you know your rights, and trading standards will very often always help you. If you are with the FSB, something like that, they have legal support. Yeah. My understanding is that you have 30 days, even if there is a contract, but I'm not sure about that. So just it is always worthwhile checking.
Well, I did check the terms and conditions. And basically there was a small paragraph that said something about you can have your money back if. And obviously my if wasn't applicable.
Okay.
Because I decided that it wasn't for me.
So rushed into it in the speed of the it's like love, isn't it?
Exactly.
It's why the model's designed. The model's designed for that.
This is why you shouldn't go to bed on the first date. Okay, yeah, never quite.
Never. You need a cooling off period.
You want to see them in the light of day.
You do. You want to see them
when they're not on their best behaviour.
But unfortunately, that's why the 5-day challenge is a method.
Yes,
it's a sales
it is,
method.
Yes,
it is. Of course, it is, and I didn't realise it.
But I tell you what, you will not be the first, and you will not be the last. You will not be the last.
And I try not to beat myself up about it. But it was money that I could have used for a lot of other things, but not getting bespoke software.
Yes, yeah, but this sounds a bit trite, but very often there is still something to learn. There is something to learn and to take away from that.
I did. I learned not to fly into things.
Yes, and that you, because I know you work with clients, may well be able to use that to support your clients further down the road, which adds more value to your own, to what you're able to share with them because of your own knowledge and experience.
Yes.
So, annoying, but there you go. There you go. It happens. I can't think what my biggest failure is. There's so many of them. They just keep reeling round and round, round and round and round. I don't know. Some of the things that perhaps I regret is not getting organised fast enough. But I also think things happen when they're supposed to happen. So that's that. So, what's your superpower? Adele, if you can't have any more superpowers left.
I would say the one I always come back to, but I always have to be careful. It could always be my Achilles heel, and that is resilience. So I have the resilience because that's what my whole business is based on. But sometimes I can be so resilient that I have to just stop and slow down. But it is my strength, and I've always had that strength of no matter how hard it gets, I will go.
What's your superpower?
Oh my goodness me! Did you ask me this question? Did I?
No.
No, I didn't.
No.
I didn't put anything down on my
No.
bio. Okay.
You won't ask this question.
My superpower, gosh, I would say empathy and compassion. I love hearing what people have got to say. I'm very into really good relationships. And I just, my superpower is my work, I think, also. I have such a passion for it. I absolutely love it. And when I sign a client off after they've finished, my heart sings because I'm just so passionate about it.
Mm.
But I think with me it's the empathy and the compassion for people who are going through issues, because I have been through them before, so I know what they're going through.
Everybody has one. Mine is still the same. I've only got the one. It's thinking on my feet.
Oh, absolutely.
That's what I do. So that's that. Those of you listening in to me now waffling on may not think that. So I think it's time to start talking with Maria about hypnotherapy. Can you tell us just briefly how you got into being a hypnotherapist? Because that wasn't how you started out in business, was it? It wasn't. You've had a little bit of a journey that brought you to being a hypnotherapist, and I think being a hypnotherapist is quite recent in your business journey, isn't it?
It's 4 years old now. I ran my own bilingual English-French-speaking virtual assistance business, since 2002 really. So I was running that for 17, 18 years. And in 2017, I went to see a solution-focused hypnotherapist because I had a fear of flying, which had basically got worse and worse over the years. When I was younger, I sort of flew all over the place. But I think since I had my daughter, it had began to build up. So I went to see her, and because I was going on a long haul flight, and I needed help. And it was great because we didn't actually talk about flying at all, which might seem strange, but that's actually what you do in solution-focused hypnotherapy. So she, that was so great. I loved what she did, and I thought, do you know what? I'm getting now. I don't particularly want to do what I'm doing. I don't want to be a VA anymore. I work with so many different clients, good ones and bad ones. I thought I'd really like to study this because I've always been really interested in psychology, sociology. At school, I studied it, and so I thought, yes, let's do some training. I would like to train to become a solution-focused hypnotherapist. And so it took me a year to basically finish my VA business. I had to find someone to take over my clients, someone I could bring in to take over my clients. Yes, that's right. And so I did my training in 2018. It was a year's training, but it was, God, I've never worked so hard in all my life. When you get to my age, and it's like going back to school or university, it was really, really hard, hard. But I did it. A lot of research, a lot of written work, a lot of case studies, a lot of class work. But I did it, and so I qualified in October 2018. But I didn't start my business until October 2019 because I had to obviously find someone else to take over my clients, my VA clients. So, so that's how it worked, really.
So you've said a couple of times solution-focused hypnotherapist.
Yes.
Is that a thing? So is it a particular thing, or is it just that what you're calling it, that you are focusing on solutions, or is it like a particular
discipline?
Thank you.
Sorry, what did you say, Adele?
Discipline.
Discipline.
So is it a thing?
It is a thing, yes.
Right, okay. So what is a solution? I think we can probably work it out from the name, a solution-focused hypnotherapist. But I've only ever heard of hypnotherapists.
Yeah. Yes.
So what's the difference between, if I was sitting here and making a decision about who to go and see for all of my various little strange peccadillos and problems, what would I be getting with a solution-focused hypnotherapist, and what would I be getting with a hypnotherapist? Can you actually draw a dividing line like that?
Okay, well, I can't really... I've never had actual hypnotherapy before. So I'm not quite sure what they do. But solution-focused hypnotherapy is... it's a discipline, and it involves actually getting the clients to find the solutions to what they want. So basically, when they come in with an issue like anxiety or depression, or I've dealt with domestic abuse, I've dealt with body dysmorphic disorder, all sorts, they'll come in for the issue, and the first consultation, the initial consultation, they go through everything that's gone on in their lives or everything that's affecting them, okay? But from then on, it's not like counselling. We don't go over it every time. Once they've told me what is the problem, that's it. From then on, we are not talking about it. We're looking at exactly what they want in their lives, how they want their lives to be, what solutions they need to find. Because actually, at the end of the day, when people come to me, they come to me because they know they want to make the change, but they're just not sure how to do it. Okay.
So, it's a question, do you actually hypnotise people?
I do at the end, but I actually don't like that word, hypnotherapy. Hypno is Greek for sleep. Okay, so I don't like the word, but I have to use it. I like to call it more focused attention or relaxation or trance. If you think about it, if you're going along the M20 up to Maidstone, you will get there, and quite often you'll think, how the hell did I get here? I don't remember driving.
You know the police listening to this, don't you?
It's trance. You're focused. No, it's good because you're focused on your journey. You're focused so much on your journey, you're almost in a trance because you're concentrating.
You're unconscious.
Yes.
You're conscious.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. I've experienced it. Well, yes. Yeah.
So I like to call it focused attention, and I do that in the last part of my session, the last, say, 20-25 minutes. But they'll come in for the initial consultation. We'll go through everything that's been going on. I'll fill out all the necessary paperwork because I have to ask them if they are suffering from anything else like migraines, IBS, rechecking things all the time. So I go through all their details, they're married, children, etc., etc. I need to have their doctor surgery. So there's a list of questions I go through with them after they've told me what they're wanting, how they're wanting to feel. And then I do a session where I talk to them about their brain, what's actually going on in their brain. So I draw a lovely picture on my whiteboard of their head, and I explain to them about their conscious part of their brain, which is the top bit, the left prefrontal cortex, which is the part where they think rationally, intellectually, and what the left prefrontal cortex intellectual brain does for them. It's their boss brain, if you like. And then I talk to them about their limbic system, which is their primitive brain, and I talk to them about the original parts of their primitive brain, which are the amygdala, you've probably heard of that, the hippocampus and the hypothalamus, which are the three parts which all connect together when you're having a moment and feeling very, very anxious or depressed. And I like to call it their health and safety department, because that's the bit of their brain that wants to keep them safe. So the amygdala is the most important part. That's the bit that recognises their feelings. And then you've got the hippocampus next door, which is like their memory library, good and bad memories of their life, what's been going on. And then the hypothalamus, which is the part that releases all the chemicals needed, the chemicals into their body, like the adrenaline, cortisol, etc., etc. hopefully some serotonin sometimes and some good hormones. But they all work together to keep the person safe, and it's really their default brain, because it's been like that for thousands of years. When we lived in caves, if you think about it, all we had to do was go and fight wild animals, bring food in for our family, and maybe fight other wild tribesmen. But we didn't have to think about getting our tax return in, or going for a meeting, or doing a presentation. Okay, so the default brain was the primitive brain in those days, and that's how it's gone on all along the centuries, really. And our left prefrontal cortex, which is our intellectual brain, that's the part that we need to use, the boss brain, to make decisions, to think about things rationally, etc., etc. But unfortunately, when people are going through lots of stuff in their lives, it's their default primitive brain which takes control. We can also call it the chimp brain. There's a great book called The Chimp Paradox, which a lot of people have probably read, and that explains exactly what's going on. So I go through that.
And do you find that understanding, that when people understand some of the biology behind what's happening, it makes it easier for them to deal with perhaps feelings of stress, anxiety, fear and overwhelm?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Okay.
The amygdala is also known as the fight, flight, freeze part of the brain. Okay, so that's the original central part of the brain, the amygdala. Saying that connects up with the hippocampus and the hypothalamus. So they all connect together to say, we need to keep this person safe. So when I explain it to them, their eyes, and they're saying, I didn't know that, goodness me. But that helps them to understand actually what is happening to them, when they're feeling this way. So we go through that, and that takes about 15 minutes. And we also talk about their stress bucket, because everybody has a stress bucket every day. I mean, I don't know how full your stress bucket is today, Sian or Adele, but anyway, we go through.
My stress bucket's always overflowing.
Okay. So we talk about the stress.
That's how I live. Bucket. Wine and stress and coffee. I find they balance each other out quite nicely.
Good idea. Well, not so good idea, but and then we talk about sleep. How sleep. When we sleep, we need a lot of REM sleep. To basically bring all our negative thoughts from our primitive brain up to the conscious part of our brain, our left prefrontal cortex, to have control over our thoughts. So there are about 5 different cycles of sleep. I mean, it's very complicated, actually, our sleep patterns, and you need to read a book called Why We Sleep, which is brilliant. But when we're sleeping, we are able to really rest and rethink about what's going on in our lives, okay? And so we talk to them about their sleep, and then I talk to them about various techniques that we suggest that they take. We always recommend doing what we call the 3 Ps. So each day, doing something positive, okay? Positive action, positive interaction, phoning somebody or emailing somebody, being positively interactive with someone. Like all those people who are in the queue to see the Queen, actually, they are talking to each other, and they are really, really feeling a lot better because they're getting together and talking about their love for the Queen, etc., etc.
So everybody in that queue's got something in common, haven't they?
Exactly, that's right. And so they're able to interact together. But even, I always say, helping a little old lady over the road, maybe, that's a really good positive action that you've taken, okay? Positive interaction is talking to people, interacting with people, and that brings on positive thoughts, okay, which increases your level of serotonin in your body, okay? Also, gratitudes, everybody's heard about this, writing your gratitudes each day, what you're grateful for, actually, because we've all got loads of things to be grateful for, small things or big things. So that's the initial consultation. So there's no hypnotherapy or focused attention in the first session. So it's explaining about the brain, etc.
Can I pick your brain?
You could try.
Actually, sort of to dispel some of the myths around hypnotherapy, because it could well be that some people don't seek hypnotherapy because of some preconceived ideas. Yeah. So how does hypnotherapy actually help? What does it do?
Okay. What they're thinking is they're thinking that they're going to be made to do something they don't want to do. They've obviously seen all the stage hypnotherapists do what they do. Like, what's his name?
Eat onions and act like a chicken or something.
Exactly. But that's completely different. That's a stage show. When they are on my couch, I'm not in control of them. All I'm doing is they're laying on my couch. First of all, we start with deep breathing, and then I'm just talking to them. And I'm talking to them in what we call language patterns, okay? And there are lots of different language patterns depending on what they're actually going through, if it's confidence or low self-esteem, etc., etc. I'm just reading to them, and they're very, very, very relaxed. Some fall asleep, but most of the time they're just there, they've just got their eyes shut, and they're just listening to my voice. And then after that, I will read them a metaphor, which is a story. And then, basically, I will bring them back into the room, if you like, but I will ask them to maybe wiggle their toes and wiggle their fingers, take a couple of deep breaths.
So with the metaphor, with the metaphor and the story, are you sort of guiding people's subconscious to
Yes.
guiding people's subconscious to a learning which is abstract the right word, which is away from the key issue that they're actually dealing with?
Absolutely. So it's really helping them to rewire their brain. Okay. So if they're going, I mean, I've had a lady, she's on her 7th session on Tuesday, but she suffered from postnatal depression, and really, really, really bad postnatal depression, and she's been anxious ever since. And she went to a counsellor a couple of years ago, but then all her depression, anxiety came back. And so she was recommended to me, and she is doing so well. Makes me want to cry. She's doing so well now. She's smiling again. She's feeling normal again. She was very worried about her little boy starting nursery school. And I said, well, what evidence have you got that something's going to happen to him? None. Okay. So it's all about thinking these thoughts, but, well, what makes you think that's going to happen?
Perhaps going a little deeper into it. Adele, I think you were going to say something.
Yeah, absolutely. So I have been hypnotised. So people are probably not aware, I had a speech impediment as a child that I just learned to manage. And when I had my spiritual awakening or menopause, the speech issue actually came back. And one of the triggers for me taking the time off was I was absolutely embarrassed in a large corporate meeting where I just lost my words, and someone said, "You can't speak properly," which is exactly what was said to me as a child, so it triggered. And then obviously I then decided to set my own business up, and then someone said to me, "How are you going to run your own business if you can't find your voice?" And I thought that's probably the one thing left. So I'd gone into speech therapy most of my life, and then someone said to me, "Why don't you try hypnotherapy?" and I worked with somebody in 4 sessions, and it was so interesting because it was not what I expected. And then when I went back out and had to have a meeting in the corporate world, I got to the end of it and I was like, I didn't stammer. And it's really interesting. But what it does is, for me, it's like you said, it's not a magic bullet. It's not going to cure it, but it's given me a mechanism of controlling it. So, and then it's very similar to NLP. So it's that same element of it. And that's why once I'd finished my 3 sessions, I then sat with that person and said, can you just understand it? So yes, it's very interesting. So it's not at all, it wasn't solution-based hypnotherapy. It was just basically, I've got a speech impediment. I'm going to need to use my voice. I'm now on the radio. And people say, really? Yeah, because I've learned to manage it. And hypnotherapy was one of the things, because I couldn't do speech therapy any longer because it just didn't work for me.
Yeah, that's absolutely great. So basically, each session, the clients come in and we always ask them what's been better about your week, okay? And they will give, I've managed to do this, I managed to do that, or I felt better. So we go through that, and then we do a thing called scaling. So from 1 to 10, asking questions: how's your anxiety? How's your confidence? So depending on how, because there's a lot of research I have to do before each client, and it's ongoing work all the time. So I do scaling to see how they're doing, and then I use a technique called the miracle question, which basically is getting them to visualise what could happen if they had a really, really good night's sleep and a miracle happened where they could change anything they wanted to in the world, anything about themselves, anything really that's causing them concern, and they would wake up and they would feel different. So we go through that, and basically it's all about moving on, finding solutions. We don't talk about anything from the past again, because that's past. So it's all solution based. So it's solution focused.
I think one of the things that's come out of this for me is, when you were saying you're reading scripts and words and this sort of thing, is that sometimes we forget the power that words have, because we use them all the time, and we just use them, and we hear them on the telly, and we hear them on the radio, and we hear people saying and speaking them. That sounds like a ridiculous statement, but it is. They're just with us all the time, that we forget sometimes that the words that we use can have an effect on us, but the words that other people use and the words that we absorb can affect us in a huge way.
Absolutely.
A huge way.
I've never studied NLP, and I'd love to do that, but what I'm actually reading is a bit like NLP, because it's words for that person. So it could be a language pattern about stress release, where I'm taking them on a boat. They're just lying back in a boat on a lake. So I'm basically creating the picture for them, where they're releasing a lot of what's going on in their head. So yes, it is language. It's all about language. And then the metaphor is just a story. There's a story which is my favourite about. It's called The Caged Bird, and it's about a little bird in a bird cage that is so fearful that whenever the owner comes and opens the cage, it will not fly away, because it feels in its comfort area is this cage. And it's a beautiful metaphor about this little bird who just, even at the end, when the owner comes and leaves the door open for a long time, all the birds are flying around and saying to it, why are you not coming out? Why are you in this cage? But it prefers to stay there. So that's a brilliant metaphor about people staying in the same situation. And we all have the possibility to make the changes. Okay, we just need to focus on them and not worry. Just a very quick thing: when you're going to do a presentation, okay, you've got your PowerPoint presentation, a bit like Adele did at our gig the other night. You've got this big presentation, and you're thinking to yourself, "This is not going to go right. I'm going to make mistakes. I'm not going to say the right thing," and it's in your mind. It's in your mind that you're not going to do it right. Okay, so you've probably done about 40 or 50 of these presentations, and every one of them you're thinking, "Oh, it went wrong," but you know that it's going to go right. So it's a question of knowing what you want. Okay, knowing that it's going to be okay. And at the end of the day, it is okay. So, yeah. So it's just your thoughts. 50 of my presentations have gone terribly. They haven't, but it's in your mind because you're very nervous about doing this presentation.
My one is always something's going to go wrong, because stuff just does go wrong, but that's okay because I can deal with it.
Yeah. And you do.
Yeah,
because that's the thinking on the feet, which is your superpower.
That's how I approach it.
Exactly.
Something always goes wrong, and that's not negative to my mind. That's realistic. Stuff happens. You forget your presentation. The internet won't work. The computer won't start. You haven't got your USB. The screen isn't working. Your speaker doesn't turn up.
There's no cable. The cable doesn't suit a Mac. Wherever I go, it's a Mac issue.
But my thing is, stuff is going to happen, but that's okay because it'll still be all right.
Exactly.
Yeah, you're exactly right. That is what you need to think, because at the end of the day, you are basically your primitive mind it's very vigilant. It's a bit obsessive. It's always coming up with things that can go wrong. Okay, because you're thinking that way. This could go wrong. What happens if this goes wrong? But in effect, it more than likely won't go wrong. It'll more than likely be okay. So you've just got to really sort of think positively about it. So that's basically it. So the focus attention part is at the end, and then I give them a bit of homework, and that's how it goes each week. So we don't talk about anything that's happened to them, but generally speaking, it takes a couple of 3 sessions for them to really come out with what is going on, because it's a question of know, like, and trust as well. The first session they're thinking, oh my goodness me, what's she going to be like, what's going to happen, and then gradually as the sessions proceed, something else will come out. I'll say, okay, well, we'll talk about that another time, because it's in the past. It's all, now we're going to move you forward to be where you want to be.
So moving forward to the solution. So Maria, we're coming to the end of the show. How can people contact you?
Okay, well, my phone number is, my mobile is 07763 497 322. That's 07763 497 322. My email address is maria@darkness2light.hypnotherapy.co.uk, and my website, which is currently, I'm having a new website built, but the current one is www.darkness2light.hypnotherapy.co.uk. I'm also on LinkedIn, Maria Chimas Baker, and Darkness to Light. I'm also on Instagram, D2L Hypnotherapy Maidstone. So yeah, just give me a buzz or connect with me. That would be fantastic.
Super. Thank you so much for sharing everything that you've shared and helping our listeners. If I can just impose on you for one more thing, let's just assume somebody perhaps can't get to a hypnotherapist or doesn't want to go or can't afford it, but they're still feeling really anxious. Is there perhaps a quick technique that they can use? It's not going to necessarily bring them to a solution, because that's going to take a little bit longer, isn't it? But that can perhaps help them just calm down a bit in the near future.
Okay, well, I've been posting about this actually.
That's handy, isn't it?
In the last week, various tips for anxiety, and one of my key ones, I would say, is deep breathing, because when you're anxious, your heart is beating really fast, and that's actually what's causing your primitive mind to get into action. Okay, so
you've got yourself into a loop, into a cycle
exactly. Our mind is connected to our body, as we all know, as you know. So basically, it's sitting down somewhere quiet, even if it's for 5 minutes, a couple of times a day, and basically breathing in through your tummy. You feel your tummy going out, and out through your nose. And each time you do that, I was saying this to my client actually on Monday, each time you do that, imagine there's some of your anxiety leaving your body. And it could be in the form, give it a form. And I said to my client, okay, this first bit of anxiety is the size of an apple, right? Breathe it out. Your second breath, it's the size of maybe an apricot. Breathe it out. The third breath, it's the size of a grape, maybe. Just breathe it out. And then the fourth one, it's the size of maybe a blueberry. Breathe it out. So each breath, you're imagining you're breathing out your anxiety, and you will feel better. So it's deep breathing, because when you're breathing deeply, you're calming your body down, and you're stopping your default primitive brain from taking over. Okay. So
that's really useful, because that's something that you can do anyway, isn't it?
Exactly.
Wherever it is that you are, you should be able. And if you're not in a position to stop and take a few deep breaths, then actually you need to do something seriously drastic to get yourself out of that situation.
Exactly. Just sitting at your computer or something. Just really take 5 deep breaths. Hold it for 5 seconds and then out. And try and do that for 5 minutes, and not that long, 5 minutes, just to relax yourself, and you'll feel yourself calming down.
Thank you so much, Maria. So that's Maria Chimas-Baker from Darkness to Light Hypnotherapy. Adelle, we will be back next week, won't we?
We will.
So my co-host Adelle Martin, I'm Sian Murphy. This has been Women in Business on the Fit for Business section of our show. So we will see you all again soon when we are talking about business strategy. Take care, folks. Bye.
Bye.
Tune in next week to the Women in Business radio show for more stories, ideas, and inspiration to help you grow your business.